Here, here we have a new topic, and it says people are likely to be misled by advertisements. Or if I say that advertisements, right, mislead people. There's a huge difference between advertisements mislead people and advertisements are likely to mislead people. There's a huge difference between the two. In first case, you say that advertisements definitely mislead people, deliberately mislead people. In the second one, you say they are likely to mislead people. That means there is a probability. And therefore, I always repeat that you must first learn to dissect the topic, because a slight difference in the wordings could basically mean a difference of interpretation, right? It says, to start with, I would say that people are likely. So this is basically emphasis, and that's why I have used the capital form. Whenever we are emphasizing in books, we can use the capital word. To start with, I would say that people are likely to be misled by advertisements, but that does not mean that advertisements deliberately mislead people. So the author is very clear right at the start. To start with, you can put a comma here because it's a short phrase. You may or may not put a comma. See, when the phrase that starts the sentence is a short one, you may not have a comma at the end of the phrase. You can directly start with the subject of the sentence. But if the phrase is a long one and is likely to create confusion, then you might put a comma at the end of the phrase. To start with, I would say that, and what do you have to say? That people are likely to be misled by advertisements, and then he says, but that basically means people, this statement, but that does not mean that advertisements deliberately mislead people. He is very clear and he puts a full stop. Advertisements are a creative, symbolic ways to attract people or to grab their attention. This is the first sentence. So it says advertisements are a creative and what they are, a symbolic way. So advertisements are a creative and symbolic ways to attract people or to grab their attention. And then you have the end of the sentence, right? You have the end of the clause. And because you are adding one more clause, you are using a conjunction which has a comma before it. Again, I have been repeating this very, very important rule of comma, that when you have two independent sentences or ideas, you must separate them either by a full stop or by a semicolon, or you must have a conjunction preceded by a proper or appropriate punctuation. You must have a comma which must be followed by a proper conjunction, appropriate conjunction. Sometimes and is the appropriate conjunction, sometimes but or some other conjunction might be the appropriate conjunction. So advertisements are creative and symbolic ways to attract people or to grab their attention. And if the figurative medium, textual, graphical, or artistic, this is again a pause. It's basically an abrupt pause. And if the figurative medium is misconstrued, misunderstood, or misinterpreted by people, then the blame lies not on the advertisers but on the people, not on X but on Y. So he says, if the figurative medium, or the figurative basically means symbolic or creative, and if the symbolic or the figurative medium, it could be in any form, is misconstrued, means basically misconstrued basically means to interpret in a different way. It's a nice word. Misconstrued, misunderstood, or misinterpreted by people, then the blame lies not on X but on Y. And who are these people who, out of ignorance, could not see through the creative process of, through the creative piece of marketing gimmick? So basically, if it is misunderstood, misconstrued, or misinterpreted, then the blame lies not on this but on something else. And who are these? They are the people who, out of ignorance. So basically, this clause, who out of ignorance, is modifying people, and therefore I have put a comma. Who out of ignorance could not see through something means to directly interpret something, to understand something. When you say that I could not see through your your suggestion, that means I could not basically thoroughly understand, or I could not interpret it, right? Who could not see through that creative piece of marketing gimmick. We have seen symbolic and figurative language in mythological stories. It says here we have parallel construction. We have seen symbolic and figurative language in X, in Y, and in Z. But because these stories and art forms, again, you have one idea, it is ending here, and you have a new idea, so you have a conjunction which is a contrasting conjunction, and you have a comma before that. But because these stories and art forms have been in existence since time immemorial, they have been properly interpreted and understood by people. Similarly, if we are to avoid people getting misled by advertisements, then we must ensure that they are taught to interpret such advertisements not in the literal but in the figurative sense. So mythological stories you understand because you know that they are symbolic. Similarly, you must understand advertisements because they are symbolic. Even if they are exaggerating something, it is not deliberately, it is just because they want to send across a message to the audience. We should view the hidden message in these advertisements and take it as suggestive of something different from what we see on the screen. We should view and take. So again, you have a proper way of joining the ideas, right? We should view the message and take it as suggestive of something different. Moreover, he adds, I feel, and what is he feel? He feels that it would be wrong to censor, basically means to ban or to edit. It says it would be wrong to censor the advertisements, as it might lead to deliberate suppression of someone's creativity. Of course, because if you start controlling advertisements, do this, don't do that, you must do this in this way, not in that way, what will happen? Basically, it might lead to a deliberate suppression of someone's creativity. So the sentence has used moreover. Whenever you want to add something, you must use the word furthermore, right? You can say furthermore or moreover, right? Or in addition to, right? So these are basically points in which you want to add something similar to what has already gone before. So he says moreover, and then he puts a comma. I feel that it would be wrong to ban advertisements, censor, basically control. Ban doesn't mean ban, but to control. I feel that it would be wrong to control advertisements because, as also means because. See, the function of because, the function of for, and the function of as are almost the same. The only difference is because shows a very strong cause effect relationship. For shows some kind of mild cause effect relationship. As is basically still milder form of cause effect, right? And it is a very polite way. So I feel that it would be wrong to censor advertisements as or because it might lead to a deliberate suppression of someone's creativity. Legislators must understand the difference between creative attempt to win someone's. Who is legislator? The one who controls something, right? So the government. So the censor board is basically a legislating body. I mean, not in the literal sense, but a kind of a legislating body. Legislators must understand the difference between creative attempt to win someone's attention and conceited or vain attempt to deliberately misguide someone. So the author says that advertisements are not deliberate means to misguide someone, but they are rather creative attempt to win someone's attention. And legislators must understand the difference between creative attempt to win. So the difference between what? Between X and Y. What is X? Creative attempt to win someone's attention. And what is Y? Conceited attempt. Conceited means basically high-headed, arrogant. Arrogant attempt to deliberately misguide someone. In each advertisement, a cautionary message informing the viewers or the readers about the purpose of the advertisement or a warning note on how to interpret the advertisement would better. So a cautionary message informing the viewers or a warning note on how to interpret would better help the viewers. So we have two subjects, a cautionary message or a warning note. And what is that cautionary message? That message basically has a modifier, a cautionary message informing the viewers or the readers about the purpose of advertisement. So the subject is a cautionary message, and the other part, informing the viewers, is basically a participial phrase. Understand this, that is how you end up writing in a better way. That's why you please go through my VAT product. because there are around 35-40 videos in that, in which we have explained how exactly you must construct sentences. In each advertisement, a cautionary message. And what is that cautionary message? It is the message informing the viewers or the readers about the purpose of advertisement, or a warning note. And what kind of warning note? On how to interpret that advertisement would better help. So what is the subject? The subject is a cautionary message or a warning note would better help. What is that cautionary message? It is the one that informing viewers or the readers about the purpose of advertisement. What is the warning note? On how to interpret an advertisement. It would better help the viewers understand and appreciate the purpose of those particular advertisements. Children are most vulnerable to advertisements that have violence or bizarre and life-threatening theatricals in them. To counter this vulnerability, parents and teachers must take up the responsibility of educating children about the purpose and the illusory effects of such advertisements. So he then tackles the point of children. At the start, basically he says that it's a symbolic and it's a symbolic and figurative, and there is no point censoring it. And then he says children are most vulnerable to advertisements that have violence or bizarre and life-threatening theatricals in them. To counter this vulnerability, parents, again you have a comma, why? Because you have an infinitive phrase. Parents and teachers must take up the responsibility of educating children about what? About the purpose and the illusory effects of such advertisements. By taking these steps, who are taking? By taking these steps, we not only educate people and children on how to interpret such visual phenomena, but also, so not only X, but also Y. We not only X, what is X? Educate people. But also Y, what is Y? Encourage the artists. So by taking these kind of steps, we not only educate people and children on how to interpret such visual phenomena, but also encourage the artists in the creative industry to experiment with their ideas and thoughts. So parallel construction, either X or Y, X and Y must be parallel. Not only X, but also Y, where X and Y must be parallel. So we have used parallel construction also, right? Taking all these points into consideration, I, again, so you have basically, you have something like taking all these points, I, right? Taking these steps, we. To counter this, parents. So to counter, who is countering? Parents. Who is taking these steps? We. Who is taking all these points into consideration? I. So you have a phrase and you have a proper subject that the phrase is modifying. Modifiers, right? Taking all these points into consideration, I would still demand strong legal measures that discourage companies and advertisers from deliberately hiding information or misrepresenting facts in order to gain any kind of competitive advantage. At the same time, advertisements aimed at the general public must have complete and correct information about the products, their contents, their effects, and side effects, if any. So the author basically says that taking all these points into consideration, I would still demand strong legal measures that discourage companies and advertisers from deliberately. So discourage someone from something, right? Discourage someone from something. Again, it's an idiom. You must understand this idiom. Finally, to conclude, I would say that we must not be rigid with things that are understood and don't need much explanation, because if the law goes into very minor affairs of people's life, then it might become a barrier to their happiness, to their freedom. Unnecessary draconian means, strict. Unnecessary draconian laws won't do much good, and instead of solving problems, they would become barriers to business and entertainment and also creativity, right? So we have a very good essay at the end. He says, to conclude, I would say, and I would say what? That we must not be rigid with things that are understood and don't need much explanation, because you can't have the law coming everywhere. Unnecessary draconian laws won't do much good, and instead of solving problems, they would become barriers to business and entertainment. So what we have seen so many good things. We have seen modifiers throughout. We have seen parallel construction, right? We have seen subject verb agreement, in which the subject has modifier. So all these things, basically, when they come together, you have good essay. And look at the paragraph. This is the conclusion. This is basically What kind of precautionary measures must be taken to ensure that people are not misguided? The point of children is a new paragraph. The point that what is basically advertisement is a second paragraph. So each unit of idea must have one paragraph. It's not necessary that essays should have 5, 6, 7, 2, 3 paragraphs. You might have only one paragraph in an essay because the essay is such that there is no paragraphing required. It all depends, but you must ensure that every paragraph is one unit.